ਵਧਾਈਆਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ। 90% ਲੋਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਰੈਗੂਲਰਲੀ ਆ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ ਸਬਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬਡ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀਗੇ। ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ 85% 'ਤੇ ਆ ਗਏ ਹਾਂ। 60% ਵੱਲ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾਣਾ। ਸੋ ਹਾਲੇ ਤੱਕ ਜੇ ਸਾਡਾ ਚੈਨਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਬਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ, ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਸਬਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਆਵਰ ਚੈਨਲ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਚੈਨਲ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਓਨਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੈਸਟ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਗੁਰਰਤਨ ਬਾਈ ਨਾਲ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਹੋਈ। ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ 'ਚ ਜੇ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਕਥਾਵਾਚਕ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਗੁਰਰਤਨ ਬਾਈ ਤੋਂ ਵਧੀਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ। ਬਾਈ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਬਾਰੇ, ਸਿੱਖੀ ਵੈਲਿਊਜ਼ ਬਾਰੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ 'ਚੋਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਨੌਲੇਜ ਅੱਜ ਮਿਲੀ ਆ। ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਨੌਲੇਜ ਜਾਂ ਵੈਲਿਊ ਸਾਡੇ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ 'ਚੋਂ ਮਿਲੀ ਹੋਵੇ, ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਲਾਈਕ, ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਐਂਡ ਸਬਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਦਾ ਚੈਨਲ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬੜੀ ਹੱਲਾਸ਼ੇਰੀ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਆ ਟੂ ਬ੍ਰਿੰਗ ਆਊਟ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਕੰਟੈਂਟ ਇਨ ਬੈਟਰ ਵੀਡੀਓ and audio experience. Please enjoy this podcast with Gurratan Singh. ਵੀਰ ਜੀ, ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਟਾਈਮ ਦੇਣ ਦੇ ਲਈ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਇੰਸਟਾਗ੍ਰਾਮ 'ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਪੋਸਟ ਦੇਖਦਾ ਪਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ, ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਮੈਂ ਗਲਤ ਹੋਵਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਰੈਕਟ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ, ਕਿ ਛੋਟੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਹਾਊਸ ਹੋਲਡ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹ 'ਚ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਇੰਨੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਵਨ ਆਫ ਯੂ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਚੇਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੀਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਜਗਮੀਤ ਵੀਰ ਜੀ ਸੀਗੇ, ਛੋਟੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਕੇਸ ਕੱਟੇ ਹੋਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਅਤੇ ਬਾਅਦ 'ਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੌਲੀ ਹੌਲੀ ਇਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਆਏ ਹੋ। ਉਹ ਸ਼ਿਫਟ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੋਈ, ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਇੱਕਦਮ ਆਮਦ ਹੋਈ ਕਿ ਲਾਈਕ ਯੂ ਚੇਂਜ ਰਾਈਟ ਅਵੇ? ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ 'ਚ, ਛੋਟੇ ਹੁੰਦਿਆਂ 'ਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਸਾਰੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਫਰੈਂਡਾਂ ਨੇ ਬਾਲ ਕੱਟੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ, I want to be like them because they talk the same language, same culture around, right? So ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੀ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਆ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਾੜੀ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਚਾਹੋਗੇ?
Well, the story is a very different one because unlike many of the experience that people have today and many of your viewers might have, I didn't grow up in Brampton.
Okay.
I was born in Newfoundland, where there was very few Sikh families. And then I grew up in Windsor, Ontario. And at that time in Windsor, I think it's different now, but then there were very few Sikh families. So I didn't grow up with many other, even people of color, racialized individuals, or other Sikhs. I think there was one other Sikh girl in my school when I was growing up. So I didn't have the same experience of seeing other people of Punjabi or Sikh background not keeping their hair or being connected to their faith or spirituality. But initially when we were growing up, there wasn't a deep connection to our spirituality. My brother, when he was young, his hair was cut. My hair was never cut, but we were given anglicized names. Like we had Sikh names, and then also we had English names as well. So I was Gary, Gurratan Singh, and my brother and sister, they all had these English names as well. And a lot of it was my father and his struggles, trying to, as a new immigrant coming to Canada, not knowing himself and not knowing how to maintain his integrity and also feel comfortable in a new society. That's what I think it was. We've since shifted from that. So my mother was someone who's always connected to Sikhi, and she always encouraged us to connect to our roots. So it was something more when my brother was younger, he experienced more. By the time I was like 4 or 5, my brother had kept his hair. I have no memory of my brother without his hair. And as my brother as my role model, we had a very strong culture of Sikhi. My father had his struggles. There's a book about it. My brother has been open about it. My father struggled with quite a lot of addiction issues, which he's since resolved, and he's an amazing guy now. But he had a lot of things he struggled with, and that's his own journey. But we grew up in a household that I didn't have like a distinct, my father never kept his hair till like 10, 15 years ago. So my brother was my role model. My brother maintained a lot of those. He was that figure for me in many ways. He's kind of in many ways like a father figure. When I was younger, he took care of me in a lot of ways. So I had that inspiration from him, and my brother got that from our mother.
ਮੌਸਮ ਚੇਂਜ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸਾਰੀ ਫਲੂ, ਬੁਖਾਰ, ਨੋਰਮਲ ਜਿਹੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ। ਧਿਆਨ ਨਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਵਰਕਆਊਟ 'ਚ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਨਾ ਵਰਕ 'ਚ, ਨਾ ਸਟੱਡੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਜਿੰਨਾ ਚਿਰ ਨੈਚੁਰਲ ਸ਼ਿਲਾਜੀਤ ਲੈਣੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ। ਕਣਕ ਦੇ ਦਾਣੇ ਜਿੰਨੀ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਅਤੇ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨੇ ਇਮਿਊਨ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਬੜਾ ਇੰਪਰੂਵ ਕੀਤਾ, ਸਲੀਪ ਬੜੀ ਇੰਪਰੂਵ ਕੀਤੀ, ਲਾਈਫ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਕਾਫੀ ਬੈਟਰ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਦੀ ਨੈਚੁਰਲ ਸ਼ਿਲਾਜੀਤ ਲੈਣੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ, ਅਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਇਹਦਾ ਸਾਈਡ ਇਫੈਕਟ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ। ਲਿੰਕ ਇਹਦਾ ਡਿਸਕ੍ਰਿਪਸ਼ਨ 'ਚ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਯੂਜ਼ ਕੋਡ IRON10 for 10% off at checkout, and ਆਪਣਾ ਫੀਡਬੈਕ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਇੰਸਟਾਗ੍ਰਾਮ ਹੈਂਡਲ Ironjeet 'ਤੇ ਦੇਣਾ ਨਾ ਭੁੱਲਿਓ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸ਼ਿਲਾਜੀਤ ਲੈਣੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ। Now back to the podcast. ਦੈਟਸ ਗ੍ਰੇਟ। ਜਗਮੀਤ ਭਾਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦਾ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ 2-3 ਵਾਰੀ ਜਿੰਮ 'ਚ ਮਿਲਿਆ। ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਗੱਡੀ ਥੱਲੇ ਵੀ ਦੇ ਦੇਣਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਯੂ ਡੋਨਟ ਰਿਮੈਂਬਰ ਇਟ। ਨਾਨਕਸਰ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਬਾਈਕ ਚਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਕੰਮ ਤੇ ਲੇਟ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਪਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ। I almost jumped a red light. You looked at me and I was like, oh, I see him in the gym, but I was like, okay, that's like 10-11 years ago. So ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੀ ਸਕੂਲਿੰਗ ਆਪਣੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ 'ਚ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ, ਹੈ ਨਾ? ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਸਰੂਪ ਸਾਂਭ ਕੇ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਿਨਾਂ 'ਚ। ਚਲੋ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦਾ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਮੇਰੀ ਦਾੜੀ ਕੱਟੀ ਹੋਈ ਆ, ਰਾਈਟ? ਮੈਂ ਪ੍ਰੋਪਰ ਸਿੱਖ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ।
I don't know if you're not I don't know about that.
Yeah,
we're all Sikhs.
ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਪੂਰਾ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਿਸ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲਾ, ਪੰਜ।
We're all trying on that, right?
So ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਾਣਾ ਸਾਂਭ ਕੇ ਰੱਖਿਆ, ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਾਈ ਹੋਈ ਆ, ਹੈ ਨਾ? ਸਕੂਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗਏ, ਰਾਈਟ? ਸਕੂਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਕਾਮ ਕਰੋ ਮੋਹ ਲੋਭ ਅਹੰਕਾਰ, ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਲਈਏ ਇੱਥੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜੋ ਯੰਗ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਵਾਕ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ maybe I'll look cool ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਬਾਲ ਕਟਾ ਦੇ, maybe I'll get this, maybe I'll get that. What was your state of mind? ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ, ਆਹ ਮੇਰੀ ਆਇਡੈਂਟੀਟੀ ਆ। ਹਾਂ, ਮੇਰੇ ਫਰੈਂਡ ਚਿੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਪਏ ਆ, they are drinking, they're doing XYZ, but how I'm gonna stick with this, because you stick with this. ਅਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਰਹਿ ਕੇ ਸਰੂਪ ਦੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਆਏ ਹੋ, ਰਾਈਟ? ਸੋ ਯੰਗ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਟਾਈਮ 'ਤੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਸਲਿੱਪ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ, ਵਟ ਇਜ਼ ਦਾ ਵਨ ਐਡਵਾਈਸ ਔਰ ਯੂਰ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਯੂ ਕੈਨ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ, ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੈਲਿਊ ਮਿਲੇ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਜੁੜ ਕੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨਾਲ।
I think this will be something we talk about a bit further in our conversation today, but my relationship with Sikhi, and something that I want to share as well today, has always been something that Sikhi was never what is traditionally thought of as a religion. I never grew up in a household where the idea was, and it's incorrectly explained in many households now, where we must follow these rules to obtain this goal. And there's a lot of misconception in Sikhiya, like, why are we following these rules to make sure we obtain some people incorrectly think to get some sort of end result after we die. This is incorrectly understood in Sikhi right now. Sikhi to me was always explained and taught to me as a path of transformation, a path of personal development, a path that will make you better, more resilient, more compassionate, more loving, more empathetic, a better human being. So for me, I never looked at Sikhi as something that constrained me. I looked at Sikhi as something that empowered me and continues to empower me. In Sikhi, there's no promise of follow these rules and you will get everlasting life after you die. There's no promise of that. Instead, it is follow this transformative path now. And right now, you will achieve more peace, more contentment, more joy, more resilience, more empathy, more love. You will get this now. That's why we walk this path. To lose our fear, to become fearless, to become more courageous. This is the path that has been laid before us. Sikhi has been taught to me in this fashion. So for me, I didn't not drink alcohol because it was a rule I wanted to follow. It was taught to me that alcohol limits us. It holds us back. It puts our mind state in a weakened state. It draws us further from a spiritual path and ultimately has a negative impact. Now, if you look nowadays, there's a huge movement of people who are stopping to drink across the board because people recognize the negative aspects of it. These lessons were taught to me back when I was young. So to me, I never felt limited. I felt instead empowered. And that by being different, my differences were something that gave me strength. They gave me a lifestyle of discipline and focus.
You're so disciplined.
I'm not that disciplined. I try to be.
For me, you are. Because it takes a lot to sit in a cold tub when it's snowing outside. And you do that a lot. ਬਾਣੀ ਹੈਲਪ ਕਰਦੀ ਆ ਕਿਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਪੇਨ ਨੂੰ ਭੁਲਾਉਣ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ। ਕਿੰਨੇ ਕੁ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹੋ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਡਾਇਬਟੀਜ਼ ਅਤੇ ਕੋਲੈਸਟਰੋਲ ਲੈਵਲ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ 'ਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ? ਲਾਸਟ 6 ਮਹੀਨਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਵਰੇਜਲੀ 4 ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 8 ਵੀਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 10 ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 25 ਪਾਊਂਡ ਲੂਜ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਕਲਾਇੰਟਸ ਨੇ, ਅਤੇ ਰਿਵਰਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ ਡਾਇਬਟੀਜ਼ ਅਤੇ ਕੋਲੈਸਟਰੋਲ ਲੈਵਲ ਵੀ ਕੰਟਰੋਲ ਕੀਤੇ ਆ। ਜਿਹੜਾ ਐਕਸਟਰਾ ਵੇਟ ਬਾਡੀ 'ਤੇ ਚੱਕੀ ਫਿਰਦੇ ਹੋ ਐਂਡ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਹੈਵਿੰਗ ਹਾਰਡ ਟਾਈਮ ਬਰਨਿੰਗ ਦੈਟ ਫੈਟ, like my clients, if you want to have a better lifestyle without sacrificing the food you like, email me at ironjeet1@gmail.com so you can start transforming your body for a better life and better mind. back to the podcast?
I think in general, Sikhi is meant to give us that strength, that internal strength to overcome any sort of obstacle. Though cold plunge is a different experience, because once you start cold plunging, you realize it feels amazing.
It does.
It actually, you feel fantastic. It's one of those things like a workout. You're someone who works out a lot. You have a lot of discipline. You're saying you're not disciplined. Someone who's as fit as you is quite disciplined. And to get any sort of end result, the path is sometimes tough. Like I like to hike a lot. I did a video recently of
I saw it.
This really cool hike in
California,
No, it was in Calgary.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really great, beautiful hike called Howling Peak. And the hike is, I talk about it's an allegory for life. It's a really tough experience. I hate the hike while I'm doing the hike. But when you actually start reflecting in the moment, you say it's this is the struggle that makes us feel this sense of joy afterwards, or even in the process. So same thing with cold plunging. It's very difficult in the process. You feel terrible in those minute or 2 minutes you do it. But then at one point you realize how amazing your body feels afterwards. And even in the process, you start feeling this deep set of calm. Like I'll do it in the backyard and, I'll look up and it'll be nighttime sometimes. And I see like the stars and the moon and I'm sitting in this tub of freezing water and it just feels like a very beautiful experience, especially if there's like a snowstorm outside, because most people think that's a crazy thing to do. But when you actually do it, it's quite beautiful.
It is. ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਕੋਲਡ ਪਲੰਜ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਲੀਵ ਪਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਿਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ, does that help you to stay calm in a storm?
Well, that's the whole point of Sikhi. The whole point of our spiritual path is to follow this lifestyle, adopt these disciplines, go to war against your ego. And when you do so, in life, when you face these stressors, you have this reservoir of strength to turn to connect with, to give you the strength to overcome. And so for me, it 100% provides so much calming nature to me. Like I've always said, Sikhi to me is not a religion. It is a way of life. I don't even say the word Sikhism. I say Sikhi. And I say Sikhi because it is a way of life that when you practice, there is a result to it. And the result is not just spiritual strength, but we look at everything as integrated. It is mental. It is physical. It is spiritual. It is societal. We're meant to improve ourselves and improve all those around us.
I see that in your eyes. I see that the Chardi Kala.
I try to be, brother.
The Chardi Kala.
You're boosting me a bit too much right now.
No. I normally when I see people in their eyes, ਅੱਖਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੀਆਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ, right? Sometimes a person doesn't have to say anything. You feel their energy. You see what they have in their eyes. ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਅੱਖਾਂ 'ਚ ਦਿਖਦੀਆਂ ਨਾ, it shows your background. Like ਮੂਵੀ 'ਚ ਨਹੀਂ flashback ਚਲੇ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਤੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਨੇ ਇੰਨਾ ਕੁਝ ਕੀਤਾ and all that, right? So how do you explain ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ? ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਆਪਾਂ ਹਰੇਕ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਬਾਈ ਜੀ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ 'ਚ, ਬਾਈ ਜੀ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ 'ਚ, ਹੋਰ ਸੁਣਾਓ ਯਾਰ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਆ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ. Like you just said you were in ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ, and then the next question you're saying ਮੇਰੇ ਆ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ, ਮੇਰੇ how you're in ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ? How do you define ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ?
ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ is a very powerful idea. And it's the idea that we aspire as Sikhs. When we say we're in Chardhi Kala, if you ask the Sikh how they're doing, they'll say to you, I'm in Chardhi Kala. And the idea is that no matter what that person has experienced, whether it's been incredibly tough times, whether it's been a fine time, we maintain or aspire to maintain rising spirits in the face of whatever we maintain to aspire to have rising spirits in the face of whatever we're experiencing. So when we talk about this idea of Chardhi Kala, specifically though, the historical context of it's important to understand. Chardhi Kala was used largely at a time in the 18th century when Sikhs were being hunted to elimination. There's a literal price upon the heads of Sikhs. And during this time, a Sikh would meet another Sikh and they might be maimed, they might be hurt, they might have suffered a terrible loss of themselves, their family, their friends, their community, and more. But when they were asked how they were doing, they would respond defiantly with love and passion and strength that they are in Chardhi Kala, in defiance of the pain and trauma and hurt they may have faced. They still work to maintain and uphold this sense of not just joy and happiness, but exponential joy and happiness. Chardhi Kala is a Kala that is increasingly going higher and higher and higher. That's what we aspire to be as Sikhs. And particularly to maintain a positive mindset in the face of adversity. That is what it means to truly be Chardi Kala. We want to maintain this in all contexts for sure, but particularly when you're facing a difficult situation, that's the moment to face Chardi Kala. That's the moment to dig in deep and find that inner reservoir, that inner strength, because within us is infinity, as the Sikh way teaches us, that within us is everything we need. When you tap into that, then you have access to all the joy, contentment, positivity that you need.
ਸਿੱਖ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ 'ਚ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ। ਵੱਡੇ ਘੱਲੂ ਘਾਦੇ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਲਮੋਸਟ ਖਤਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਬੋਤਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਗਲਚਾ ਸਿੰਘ ਰਹਿ ਗਏ ਸੀਗੇ। ਉਹ ਮਿਲੇ ਆਪਸ 'ਚ, ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਜੀ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ, ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਪੰਥ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ 'ਚ। ਕੋਈ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਪੈਸੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਖਤਮ ਕਰਤੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਿਖਾਉਣਾ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਅਜੇ ਖਤਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਏ। ਦੋਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਟੋਲ ਲਾਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਲੰਘਣਾ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਟੋਲ ਦੇਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ। ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ 'ਚ ਰਹਿ ਕੇ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਸਿੰਘ 2 ਆ ਭਾਵੇਂ 1 ਆ, 1.25 ਲੱਖ ਕਿਸੇ ਗੱਲੋਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਹਾਊ ਡੂ ਯੂ ਡਿਫਾਈਨ 1.25 ਲੱਖ ਅਕੋਰਡਿੰਗ ਟੂ ਯੂ? ਕਿ 1.25 ਲੱਖ, ਕਈ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੂੰ ਇਕੱਲਾ ਵਾ, ਤੂੰ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ 1.25 ਲੱਖ ਹੋ, ਐਵੇਂ ਸਿੰਘ ਕਹੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ 1.25 ਲੱਖ। ਆਈ ਵਾਂਟ ਯੂ ਟੂ ਐਕਸਪਲੇਨ ਲਿਟਲ ਬਿਟ ਮੋਰ ਅਬਾਊਟ ਦੈਟ ਕਿ 1.25 ਲੱਖ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਜੇ ਵਧੀਆ ਵਰਡ 'ਚ ਡਿਫਾਈਨ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਕਰੋਗੇ?
So 1.25 lakh is this idea that one can battle 125,000 others. But if we look at the Sikh way, what is the context in which this idea comes forward? There's this beautiful line from Guru Gobind Singh Ji. There's this beautiful line from Guru Gobind Singh Ji where he says, I will make sparrows fight hawks. I will make lions out of sheep. I will empower the oppressed, and I will make one fight 125,000. Then I will be called Gobind Singh. When we look at the Sikh path, and when we look at what has really been put before us, this is a transformative path. The point of walking this path is to improve yourself, to get the ability to be transformed, to be the sparrow that can then battle the hawk, to be the sheep that is then turned into a lion, to be that one that can battle 125,000 others. And the root of this is in the sense and in the fact that in the Sikh way, we are taught that we're all one, we're all connected. And if we're all one and all connected, not just you and I, but this entire universe, then within you is infinity. And when you connect and tap into that infinity, then you realize there's nothing you can't overcome. And that's why throughout history, this is not just an ideal that we aspire to. We have historical accounts that you've described of Gurratan Singh, Bota Singh, of also the Battle of Sargadi, where 21 Sikhs fighting countless thousands of attackers. Time and time again throughout our history, we've seen a handful of Sikhs fight in the most desperate of circumstances. And it is inspired by this idea that they've walked this transformative path. They've given up and lost their fear. They have become transformed. They've become transformed into something far more powerful. And with that energy, with that motivation, with that strength, they then realize that they have an exponential ability. And that's what we're trying to tap into. To be Savalak is to realize that you have an exponential ability and to tap into that.
Sant Sipahi. ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਇਕੱਲਾ ਸੰਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ, ਸਿੱਖ ਸਿਪਾਹੀ ਵੀ ਆ। ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ, ਈਵਨ ਦੋ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਵੈਪਨ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਉਦਾਸੀਆਂ 'ਤੇ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਪਰ ਉਹ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ, ਮੀਰੀ ਪੀਰੀ ਦੇ ਕੌਨਸੈਪਟ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਸੰਤ ਸਿਪਾਹੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਕੌਨਸੈਪਟ ਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਮੰਨਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਹਾਂ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੀਰੀ ਪੀਰੀ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੌਨਸੈਪਟ ਆ ਉਹ ਕਿਸ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੱਕ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਦਿਸ ਹੈਜ਼ ਟੂ ਬੀ ਡਨ? ਇਕੱਲਾ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ ਪਾਠ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਸਿੱਖੀ 'ਚ। ਯੂ ਹੈਵ ਟੂ ਬੀ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲੀ ਐਕਟਿਵ। You have to know, I know we are in modern world right now, ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਇੰਨੇ ਸ਼ਾਸਤਰ, but being a Sikh, ਤਿਆਰ ਬਰ ਤਿਆਰ ਰਹਿਣਾ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ। So I want to take your approach to that idea, ਕਿ how do you look at that?
Yeah, so Sant Sipahi is this very powerful idea. And to add to your point as well, in the Sikh tradition, we believe that there is a complete consistency from Guru Nanak Sahib Ji to Guru Gobind Singh Ji. And that idea of Sant Sipahi is consistent throughout. We have the historical account of Guru Nanak Sahib Ji confronting Babur and his injustices. And we have Babur Bani in the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, where he speaks against the brutality, the oppression, the violence that Babur was spreading across the region. And he spoke out against it, was imprisoned for it, and was someone who was an activist against injustice. This is a tradition we've always had, because the root of it is this: if we're all one, as right now I speak with you, we're one. In the Sikh belief, we understand that we're connected.
I'll feel connected with you right now.
Appreciate that, brother.
Yeah.
But in a Sikh context, we believe in the oneness of all, that you and I are one, that this division we see is an illusion. And the truth is that we're all one. I'm one with you. I'm one with everyone. I'm one with those who disagree with me and hate me. I'm one with nature. I'm one with the sun, the stars. This entire universe is one. But if we are all one, then we must understand that we have an obligation to uplift and help others. What's the point of us saying, yes, we're all one, and then your pain and your injustice is separate from me? Are we truly one then? The root of us understanding our deep culture of social justice is found in the fact that we are all one. And because we're all one, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. We have a spiritual, a moral, a societal obligation to fight for the upliftment of all people. And to do so, you need to be a Sant Sipahi. What is a Sant Sipahi? A spiritual warrior is one who has this, it's this really beautiful paradigm in the Sikh path, in the Sikh way, where we recognize that someone needs to be first a Sant, someone who's spiritually engaged. To me, this is the reflective, the spiritual, the poetic, the artistic. This is the contemplative side of someone who meditates daily, reflects on Gurbani, looks into themselves and does that really hard work of improving themselves, of trying to better themselves. And then by realizing that we're all one, they then recognize that they must be a Sipahi. They must be a warrior who then fights against injustice in all of its forms. But to be a warrior is a variety of things. Yes, you must be physically strong to be a warrior. Yes, you must be physically skilled in martial arts to be a warrior. But to be a warrior, you need intelligence. You need strategy. You need to be able to work with others. You need to be able to overcome foes. You need to understand landscape. You need to understand the art of improving the world. You need to understand the art of war. But where are we? What is the kind of war that we're actually carrying out? Yes, it is in defense of those who are oppressed. But to me, I want to be a warrior against poverty. I want to be a warrior against food insecurity. I want to be a warrior against the destruction of our environment. And I think the Sikh way encourages us. The Sikh way encourages us to be a warrior. It motivates us to be a warrior against all forms of injustice. And ultimately, if you recognize that we're all one and we have an obligation to everyone, to uplift everyone, then you must be your best. You cannot be mediocre. In the Sikh way, there's this strong culture of we need to improve ourselves. We need to always better ourselves. We need to be on this journey of continual improvement because the world requires us to be our best so we can fight against these negative aspects that are impacting everyone, be it poverty, be it injustice, be it food insecurity, be it the destruction of the environment. Our belief in oneness requires us to be Sant Sipahis, warriors, spiritual warriors, and we must be our best aspect. We must be the best version of ourselves so we can serve and uplift all of humanity.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਫਿਗਰ ਹੋ, ਰਾਈਟ? ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟਾਂ ਤੇ ਜਾਣਾ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਈ ਚੰਗਾ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ, but you came here. I'm thankful for that. So why are you doing these videos? What kind of message you want to put out there?
This is a really good question. And this is the root of why I've been motivated to do these videos. I think we've all been told a lie. And the lie is this. We all want to seek more joy, more contentment, more peace. But so many of us are told that to obtain this peace, you need to leave. You have to go find yourself. Go to the jungles, escape society. For millennia, we've been told that to obtain that inner peace that we're all searching for, that we need to remove ourselves from society. But when we look at the Sikh path, it is such a beautifully unique path that the world doesn't know about. We haven't done enough hard work to share these unique lessons that we can teach the world and share with the world about our path. And our paradigm is very different. Our paradigm is this: by living within society, by working alongside individuals, by having relationships with our friends, our families, by having families if we so choose, having kids. This process is actually the best arena to battle the ego. This is the place in which we can actually engage in this process to work to understand that we're all one. Having a family and friends and being within society is not something that holds us back from our spiritual process, but is an integral part of our spiritual process. And this knowledge has been developed over 10 lifetimes of our gurus, and now within the Sri Gurratan Sahib Ji. This culture that we've developed as Sikhs, this gift we've been given by our gurus, is something that the world can benefit from, to understand how we can live both within society, but then still pursue this path of oneness and of spiritual empowerment.
ਉਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਇੱਕ ਚਿੱਤ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਮਨ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ, right? How do you bring both of them together, your mind and your body?
Yeah, this is a beautiful idea. So I'll start off by kind of shaping this context a little bit. Before I'm going to get to that point, but I want to share one idea first. When we talk about the Sikh experience, and this is just more of a societal conversation, why have we done such a bad job in sharing our deep spiritual traditions? And I think it's this. When we first came to Canada, so many Sikhs, they just want to survive. They just want to exist. We want to be able to wear dastars, wear kirpans, wear articles of faith. And so much of our prachar was focused on who we are and what we look like. And that's important. In Canada, we have so many great freedoms to wear our articles of faith and be who we are unapologetically. But now we have another opportunity, another duty to do. We need to share why we look this way. What are the belief systems that inspire us? Our beliefs in justice and oneness. And one of these ideas is also this deep understanding of how to improve our spiritual state. So in Gurbani, we talk about how our mind is chanchal, mana chanchal. What does chanchal mean? It's a very powerful word, and it's a state of not being present in the moment. A chanchal mind is unsteady, unfocused, is continually running from one idea to the next idea. When I think of myself, I think of how often my mind is chanchal, how often I'm filled with these anxieties and worries of what has happened and what will happen. And in the Sikh path, we say, by connecting to the oneness that connects us all, we can then improve and we can empower ourselves spiritually by connecting to this oneness that connects us all and steady our mind, find the peace and contentment that we search for. Our mind can become focused with ikaman, ikachit. Ikaman, ikachit is to have one mind with one pointed focus. This is a deep sense of focus that we develop in the Sikh path when we start to reflect on Gurbani, meditate on the one, and we develop this great, intense form of focus. How many times have we sat down to meditate and our mind runs from one issue to the other issue? How many times have we sat down to jap naam?
It happens all the time.
All the time. But through this process of more reflection, of working on it, of meditation, by reading and understanding Gurbani, by contemplating, then we can truly develop this deep sense of focus, this one pointed focus that Gurbani refers to many times as ekaman ekachit. With this complete sense of focus, then we can truly understand and connect with the oneness. And by doing so, understand and appreciate and experience the joy, contentment, love, empathy, and compassion that we seek.
I'm zoning out as you're talking. I'm just thinking about the stuff you're talking, and my back of the mind, my film ji chalne lag jandi hai. Yeah, this is happening. He's so true about stuff. So, what is your perspective of a Sikh way of your life? ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਉੱਠਦੇ ਹੋ, ਸਵੇਰ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਰਾਤ ਤੱਕ, ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ every day ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਫਰੇਮ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ ਹਾਂ, this is my life and this is how I'm going to live it in a Sikhi way, and this is the best way for me.
So to understand the Sikh way of life, let's take a moment to understand Sikhi. So as I said before, I don't even say the word Sikhism. I say the word Sikhi. I say the word Sikhi because Sikhi is a way of life that's meant to empower us, that's meant to improve us. But to truly understand Sikhi, let's understand what is the foundation of this way of life. So we talked about this idea of oneness, that we're all one, that we're all connected, that even as we sit here, in the Sikh path, we truly believe that the differences I see are an illusion And this illusion we describe as Maya. And this Maya is something that is every aspect around us. It's not just the materialism. It's not just the pursuit we have for wealth or for fame or for all these egotistical wants. Maya is actually this belief that we have that we're separate from one another. And in the Sikh path, we want to battle this Maya. But what is the root of Maya? Where does Maya take hold? It takes hold in the ego. And we need to understand why the Sikh path describes ego as such a limiting factor. So in the Sikh path, in the Sikh way, we describe home as the ego. What is home? Home is this idea of I, of me being separate. It is the me instead of the we of our oneness. And the reason why we look at home and we describe it as a rog, as a disease. In a world we live in right now, it's such an egocentric world, right? Your success, your achievements, people will judge you based on your personal success, based on the amount of money you have in your bank account, based on the amount of the kind of car you drive, the house you live in. These are all egotistical pursuits. In the Sikh path, we say that this egotistical pursuit, this pursuit of home, this belief in the I is a rogue, is a disease. It's a disease because it limits us, it prevents us. If your true nature is that within you is the one, if within you is infinity, an eternal infinity, then the ego, which is bound by the now. Gurratan is not here forever. This sense of myself is going to be here for a moment and then is gone. As we all are. But within us, our birthright is an eternal infinity that we can tap into. That is our true nature. So in the Sikh path, we say the ego limits us because it prevents us from tapping into our true nature.
ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਬਾਰੇ 2-3 ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਪਰਸਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੈਂ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਦੇ ਆਰ ਲਾਈਕ ਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਨੇ ਰਾਈਟ ਚਲੋ ਮੇਰੇ ਮੁੰਦਰਾਂ ਪਾਈਆਂ ਰਾਈਟ ਮੇਰੀ ਦਾੜੀ ਕੱਟੀ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਬਟ ਆਈ ਸਟਿਲ ਬਿਲੋਂਗਸ ਟੂ ਅ ਸਿੱਖ ਫੈਮਿਲੀ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਕਿ ਭਾਈ ਜੇ ਤੇਰੇ ਵਾਲ ਕੱਟੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਰਾਈਟ ਤੂੰ ਕੰਨ 'ਚ ਮੁੰਦਰਾਂ ਪਾਈਆਂ ਨੇ ਰਾਈਟ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਤੂੰ ਦਾੜੀ ਕੱਟੀ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਤੂੰ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਬਾਰੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੋਲ ਸਕਦਾ ਰਾਈਟ ਸੋ ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ 'ਤੇ ਬੰਦਾ ਕੀ ਸੋਚੇ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬਿਲੋਂਗ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਪੂਰੇ ਬਾਣੇ 'ਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਚਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੂਰੇ ਬਾਣੇ 'ਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਹੱਥ ਜੋੜ ਕੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਹੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੋਲੋ ਹੀ ਨਾ ਮੂਹਰੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੜ੍ਹੋ ਹੀ ਨਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਆਈ ਫੀਲ ਲਾਈਕ ਜੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਵਰਗਾ ਪੜ੍ਹੂਗਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੁਣੂਗਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਿਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰੂਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਫਾਈਨਲੀ ਰਾਹ 'ਤੇ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਚੜ੍ਹੂਗਾ ਯੂ ਜਸਟ ਵਾਂਟ ਸਮਬਡੀ ਟੂ ਸਪ੍ਰਿੰਟ ਵੈਨ ਅ ਪਰਸਨ ਡਜ਼ਨਟ ਈਵਨ ਨੋ ਹਾਊ ਟੂ ਵਾਕ ਰਾਈਟ ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਆਪਣੇ 'ਚ ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਬੋਲਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਬੰਦਾ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਾਲ ਕੱਟੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਚਲੋ ਬੋਡੀ ਸ਼ੇਪ ਵੀ ਕਰਦਾ ਤੂੰ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਬਈ ਤੂੰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਬੋਲ ਸਕਦਾ ਤੇ ਤਾਂ ਹੱਕ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਦਾ ਬੋਲਣ ਦਾ how do you take that?
So I would say a few things. The first thing I would say is this. We have a maryada. And in our maryada, the Akal Takht maryada that is the maryada that many people subscribe to and follow, it says very clearly the definition of a Sikh. And it is based on someone who believes in the 10 Gurus, the oneness of Waheguru, the institution of Amrit and the Khalsa. It's based on those factors. That's not my opinion. This is the opinion. This is what's laid out in the Maryada that many people subscribe to. That is our Maryada that was developed over a long period of time by many, many Sikh intellectuals. So I would say that as per that Maryada, they're wrong. That if you have that belief system, then you are a Sikh. Now, there's a distinction between that and Khalsa. There's obviously a different state of responsibility and discipline that must be followed by those who are initiated into the Khalsa. So there's a distinction there, of course, and I recognize that. But if you have that belief and you have that love towards the Guru and you follow you have these belief systems, then you are a Sikh and you have the ability and you should be able to engage in Panthic conversations in the Panth as a whole.
Thank you for answering that because it bothers many people ਕਿ ਭਾਈ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਚਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਿਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ 100% ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਬਾਰੇ ਬੋਲੋ ਹੀ ਨਾ
Well, I should say this as well, and I usually say this in the beginning of whenever I speak, and I'll add it now. I am not a Sikh theologian. I'm not a Sikh academic. Honestly, sometimes I'm not even that good of a Sikh. Anything I say today that I'm sharing that is positive is because I have been able to properly understand Gurbani and communicate it, and I've had a lot of people around me who I have conversations with very regularly who help guide me and give me a lot of good advice and guidance in conversations. Anything that I say that has offended someone or someone takes negatively, that is because of my own ego and my own inability to understand Gurbani and our teachings and our history. And for that, I am sorry. So I am just someone who's passionate about Sikhi. And I think that we haven't done enough to share this unique way of looking at the world, of how different we look at the world. And one of the ways in which I think is such an important aspect of understanding our Sikh worldview, of how we understand the world, is understanding the unique way we look at the world. How as a Sikh, when we walk in nature and we see the trees and the earth, we understand that that's a part of us. When we're in a fight with someone who is different than us and disagreeing with us and feels like the other in so many ways, as a Sikh, we need to take a moment and recognize that person you're still one with. As a Sikh, when we see injustice happening anywhere in the world, we have to understand that that is injustice that is deeply connected to us and that we have an obligation to fight against. We have a unique way of looking at the world, and we must continually connect to our roots and our Gurbani and our traditions to understand how we truly can embody those principles and beliefs. How are we for time?
We have another 15 minutes.
Okay, so let's. There's a few ideas I want to get into, just because there's a lot of new stuff I want to talk about too. So ask me about desire, and then that'll get me into some other ideas. Trishna. Yeah. Trishna Gurbani ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁੰਦਾ
ਹੈ ਤ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨਾ। ਸੋ ਹਰੇਕ ਬੰਦੇ ਦਾ ਨਾ ਕੋਈ ਡਿਜ਼ਾਇਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਤ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਖਿੱਚ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿਸੇ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੀ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਉਹ ਖਿੱਚ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਪੁੱਠੇ ਕੰਮ ਵੀ ਕਰਾਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਸਿੱਧੇ ਕੰਮ ਵੀ ਕਰਾਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਤ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨਾ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਜਾਂ ਡਿਜ਼ਾਇਰ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਵਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਡਰਾਈਵ ਕਰਦਾ ਵਾ, ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਹਾਊ ਡੂ ਯੂ ਟੇਕ ਦਿਸ ਹੋਲ ਕਨਸੈਪਟ ਤ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨਾ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਵਰਕ ਕਰਦਾ ਵਾ?
So when we understand the Sikh worldview, and that's what I'm trying to present today, we understand that we've talked about the ego as being a limiting factor that holds us back. We then talked about Maya, this world of illusion that clouds us from seeing the reality that we're all one. We have to understand that the root of our sorrow, the root of a lot of our pain, is in Trishna, our desire. And the root of our pain, the root of our sorrow is in our Trishna, our desire, and largely our desire towards material achievements. When we focus on our material pursuits, when we have this desire, in the Sikh way, we understand that Trishna, our desire, is like a hole within you that can never be filled. No matter how many things you put in this hole, no matter how many people you try to use to fill this hole, this desire is unsatiable. And in the Sikh path, we recognize that the ego is fueled by this desire. They say that the ego is built on our actions of our past and our wants from the future and our wants for the future. And that is all fueled by desire. So how do we connect, or how do we end the sorrow that's connected to this desire? In the Sikh path, we say it's by understanding our oneness, by understanding that we're all connected. When we understand the infinity that exists within us, when we understand we're all one, then the ego is understood as something you have to go to war with. And when you go to war against your ego, in the Sikh idea, they always describe this beautiful metaphor to me of when a piece of salt wants to understand the ocean, the deeper it dives, the salt starts to dissolve and dissolve and dissolve until the salt becomes one with the ocean. In the same way, we want to go so deeply into understanding this oneness that our ego dissolves and we become one with reality, everything that we're connected with. When we do so, then this desire, this Trishna becomes eliminated because we've connected to the thing that we really need, which is that oneness that connects us all.
Kaam, krodh, moh, lobh, ahankar. ਇਹ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਛੱਡਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ। ਇਹਦੀ ਤ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨਾ ਵੀ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ, ਇਹਦਾ ਡਿਜ਼ਾਇਰ ਵੀ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ, depending on how one person gets followed by these things. Next question.
That's great. Actually, I'm going to answer this because you've described the 5 thieves of spirituality, but they're also described as the 5 enemies of spirituality. Why are they enemies? So let's understand that every single moment you are going to war against these 5 enemies. Kaam, krodh, loh, moh, hankar. Lust, anger, greed, attachment, and egotistical pride. you're going to war with them because any moment where your cravings take control of the direction you want to take your life, you've lost a battle with lust. Any moment where you get filled with so much anger that you yell out, you lose your peace, you've lost that battle with anger. When you become someone who loses their contentment because you're running from one desire to the next, you've lost that battle with greed. When you become bound down and fixed by the attachments or people or things around you, you've lost that battle with attachment. And when you become so absorbed in yourself, when you have so much hubris that you lose your ability to learn from others, you've lost your battle with egotistical pride. So understand that daily you are going to war against your ego, and you can either win or lose. Daily, every single moment, you're going to war against these 5 enemies, and you can either win or lose. And in the Sikh way, we say you have some weapons that you can use in this battle. And these weapons are Naam and Seva. They are Simran and Seva. Through meditating on the oneness that connects us all, we understand that we're all connected, and we start to realize the illusion of the ego. And by serving others, by doing seva, we understand the Waheguru and others, that we're all connected. This is how we go to war against our ego. And just to add to this point really quickly, so start thinking of your life that this is something that I try to do now. Like anyone, I get annoyed, I get angry. And when I yell out now, I realize, I take a moment and I go, I just lost that battle. Krodh just beat me. I'm getting discontent because I am becoming so focused on my material pursuits. I take a moment and I say, well, right now, Lo just beat me. And so this is the mentality, I think, as Sikhs, to understand that you are a Sant Sipahi because you're going to battle every single moment.
I feel like craving a ਜਿਹੜੀ ਲਾਲਸਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਪਲੇਸ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਕ੍ਰੇਵਿੰਗ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਡਾਈਟ 'ਚ ਹੋਵੇ, ਵਰਕਆਊਟ 'ਚ ਹੋਵੇ, ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਨ 'ਚ ਹੋਵੇ, ਕਿਸੇ 'ਚ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਇੱਦਾਂ, ਹੁਣ ਗੱਡੀ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਪਈ ਆ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ 4 ਸਿਲੰਡਰ ਦਾ, ਇੱਕ ਨੂੰ ਗੁੱਸਾ ਆ ਗਿਆ ਕੋਈ ਮੈਂ ਦੱਬ ਕੇ ਵੱਜਣਾ ਉੱਤੇ ਤੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਸਾਰਾ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਖੜਾ ਦੇਣਾ। ਬਟ ਜੋ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ 'ਚ ਸਾਰੇ 4 ਦੇ 4 ਕੰਟੀਨਿਊ ਚੱਲੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲੰਬੀ ਡੈਸਟੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ 'ਤੇ ਵੀ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਸੋ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ ਆ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ, ਰਾਈਟ, ਸਿੱਖੀ ਜੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੈਕਟਿਸ ਕਰਨੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹੋ, ਰਾਈਟ, ਡਿਸਪਲਿਨ 'ਚ ਚੱਲਦੇ ਹੋ। ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਬੰਦੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਮੈਂ ਨਾ ਬਹੂ ਲਵਲੀਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਨੇ ਪਾਠ ਕਰ ਲਏ, ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਨੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਲਈ, ਸਾਡਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਇਆ। ਅਰਦਾਸ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੌਨਸੈਪਟ ਆ, ਮੈਂ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਮੁੜ ਕੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਬਾਰੇ, ਪਰ ਇਟਸ ਸੋ ਸੱਚ ਅ ਬਿਊਟੀਫੁਲ ਕੌਨਸੈਪਟ ਆਫ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ ਉਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੰਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਨੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਮੂਹਰੇ, ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਇੰਨੇ ਚੀਜ਼ 'ਚ ਸਾਡਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੋ ਜੇ। ਉਹ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੌਦਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਪਏ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਨੇ ਆਲੇ ਦਿਨ ਆ ਕੇ ਆਲੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਚੜ੍ਹਾ ਕੇ ਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ। ਆਈ ਫੀਲ ਲਾਈਕ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਜੇ ਦਿਲੋਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੋਵੇ ਨਾ, ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਆ। ਮੈਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਦਿਨ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਹੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਨਾ 1.5 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ, ਅਤੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਸੁਣੀ ਕਿ ਹਾਂ ਆਹ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ 'ਤੇ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਕਈ ਚਪੇੜਾਂ ਵੱਜੀਆਂ ਕਿ ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਕੈਮਰੇ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, ਆਹ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, ਗਲਤ ਕਈ ਵਾਰ ਰਿਕਾਰਡ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ, ਆਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੁਛ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਸੋ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੌਨਸੈਪਟ ਆ ਉਹ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ ਕੋਈ ਚੀਜ਼, ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਉਹ ਰਾਈਟ ਟਾਈਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਪਰ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਦਿਲੋਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਉਹ ਐਸੇ ਟਾਈਮ 'ਤੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਊਗੀ ਕਿ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗਰੋ ਹੋਵੋਗੇ, 100% ਹੋਵੋਗੇ। ਵਾਟ ਇਜ਼ ਯੂਰ point of view looking at ardas?
So this is actually a really beautiful idea of ardas, and understanding that whenever we do anything, we need to ask the divine for that guidance. But also, what are we asking the divine for? And I think what we should ask the divine for is laid out in the ardas. Nanak naam, chaddi kala, tere pani, sarvata pala. This is, I think, the true ask from the divine, that we ask to connect to the divine through Naam. We ask for Chaddi Kala. We ask for Chaddi Kala. We ask to understand the Pana, the Hukam, the order of the universe. And we ask for the upliftment of all humanity. This is what should motivate us as Sikhs. And I think sometimes we get stuck into this point of doing ardasas for things when we need the greatest gift of all, which is a mindset, which is Chaddi Kala. When we understand, and I haven't talked a lot about this idea, but when I think of the idea of hukam is this really beautiful idea. Hukum is the divine order of the universe. And to understand hukum is to recognize this. If something good happens in your life, that's okay. If something bad happens in your life, that's okay. If you're successful in something in your life, that's okay. If you're unsuccessful in something in your life, that's also okay. To understand hukum is to recognize that yes, we must make effort. We have to do udam. We must struggle, jujana. But the outcome of our actions are in the hands of the divine. And when we start to accept this control that is when we start to accept the things that are outside of our control, and we start to fall in love with the journey instead of being focused on the outcome, then we understand hukum. And this is something that I think can give you a lot of peace and a lot of focus. Now, this is something that I struggle with a lot because we have two goals in Sikh. We must develop ourselves. We must become better. But we also don't want to be fixated on the outcome because that's outside of our hands. And I think this is that balance where in the Sikh path, we talk about jujana. This beautiful line of Gurbani from Gurratan Singh Ji that ends with saying, at the end, in the might of battle, may I die struggling. Not victorious, but struggling. Because the victory is actually not in the outcome. The victory is in the input that we put in. And when we start to focus on jujana in this way, when we start looking at our own lives and saying, I'm going to fall in love with the struggle. I'm going to fall in love with improving. I'm going to fall in love with working as hard as I can to uplift others, to connect with the oneness, to be more compassionate, more empathetic. Then I think that's when true contentment, joy, love, and peace come.
ਹੁਕਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਬੰਦਾ ਰਹਿਣ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਨਾ ਫਿਰ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਵਾਂਗੂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਰਾਜ 100 ਸਾਲ ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਰਾਜ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਰਾਜ 'ਚ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਜੇਲ੍ਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਹੋਈ। ਸੋ ਕਿਸੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ ਜਰਮਨੀ ਵੱਲ ਦੇ ਰਾਈਟਰ ਨੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਵਾ ਕਿ ਮਹਾਰਾਜਾ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਨਾ ਇਹ ਬੜਾ ਵੀਕ ਜਿਹਾ ਬੰਦਾ, ਇੰਨਾ ਸਟਰੋਂਗ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ। ਕਿਤੇ ਇਹਨੇ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਜੰਗ 'ਤੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਕੁਛ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਇੱਕ ਬੁੱਕ ਹੀ ਖੋਲ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹਨ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ। ਉਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੋਂ ਹੁਕਮਨਾਮਾ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਅਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਜੰਗ 'ਤੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ ਜਿੱਤ ਕੇ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ। ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਐਡਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਇਹ ਹੈਗਾ ਜੰਗਾਂ ਜਿੱਤਿਆ, ਇਹਨੂੰ ਬਸ ਕੋਈ ਜੰਗ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਕੋਈ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਇੱਕ ਬੁੱਕ ਖੋਲ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹਨ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ। ਸੋ ਹੁਕਮ 'ਚ ਰਹਿਣਾ, ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੁਕਮਨਾਮਾ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਵਿਆਹ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਹੋਵੇ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਿਤੇ ਜਾਣਾ ਵਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਦੀ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਫਿਰ ਹੁਕਮਨਾਮਾ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਹੁਕਮਨਾਮੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਹੁਕਮ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਵਾ ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਹੁਕਮ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਹ।
And what is this hukum though? When we read about Gurbani, what is it telling us? The vast majority of what Gurbani is telling us, when we look at the Sikh path, it is giving us this path of how to transform ourselves. And one of the most interesting things I think about Sikhi is this. What we're told, there's this beautiful line in Gurbani that says, Pella maran kabul. So before anything, the first thing you must accept is death. How empowering and how universal is that message? Because something we all face will be death. Before we accept anything in the Sikh way, we must first accept death. Death of what? Death of our ego. If you want to walk this path, we must accept that we must work to eliminate this ego and give up we must give up any hope for life. What kind of life? This materialistic life. We must abandon our ego and give up any hope for materialistic life. And we must start to focus on ourselves. We must then focus ourselves towards understanding this oneness. We must understand this connection we all share. We must go to battle against our ego. And by doing so, we obtain the joy, the peace, and the love that we seek. Okay, I want to drop just a few new ideas and we'll call it? Okay. That's because these are things I never talked before. So I want to just do this. I'm going to do just this and then 3 more ideas. Okay. So you were talking to me and you're asking me about the Sikh path in general. And I think there's this beautiful idea in Sikhi, this beautiful shabad that I think about all the time. And it says, I am insane. The whole world is sane and I am insane. Main bora. And when you look at the Sikh way, when you look at the path that is before us, they will think you're insane. They will think you're insane when you start to wake up before the sun rises to meditate, to connect. They will think you're insane when you start to live a life of discipline, focus on spiritual, mental, and physical improvement. They will think you're insane when you start to reject that drink of alcohol or that other drug. They will think you're insane when you begin to become focused on uplifting and empowering all those around you. That is that moment when they will think you're insane. And the reality is that this whole world is actually insane. This whole world is caught up in the madness of our ego. And that one is actually insane. That person is truly insane who doesn't take time to understand themselves. So take it as a point of recognition that when others start to question you and your lifestyle, when you are walking this disciplined path, that you are actually have begun this journey of understanding the joy, the calm, the poise, the balance that can come when you walk this spiritual path. And this is other idea that it's really interesting because when we talk about development, what I'm beginning to understand more and more is that to walk this spiritual path, what is one of the words we refer to as the divine? And this is interesting to keep in mind that we want to reflect the qualities of the divine. We want to be like the divine. So when we describe the divine, we're not describing something separate than us. We're describing something that we want to connect with. So one of the words is antarjami. It's how we describe this oneness that connects us all, the knower of everything inside of us. So we are someone that we must also work to understand what is within us. We need to understand our own journey, our own traumas. We need to take time. Like what I'm suggesting is this: to walk the Sikh path it's not just enough to do these actions. You actually need to take a moment to have some really tough experiences with yourself, to understand the traumas and limitations that you've experienced, to work on them, to improve yourself, to recognize how you need to be a better human being and what aspects you need to improve upon. We need to understand ourselves. We need to understand the issues and the journey that we have experienced and how that has impacted us. And we need to do that personal development. I think that's something that is really connected to this Sikh path. That line of Gurbani I was referring to says, that person is truly insane who doesn't take time to understand themselves. And of course, understanding ourselves is to recognize the oneness that connects us all, but also to understand ourselves is to understand the experiences we've had and how to improve ourselves. And when we think of what Khalsa Bolli is, this language of resilience that was developed. Exactly. When we understand this language of resilience that it was developed in the 18th century. It was developed at a time when Sikhs were being hunted to elimination. It was developed at a moment when a Sikh would be traveling without access to food or water, being hunted, having a literal price on their head that if a head was offered, you would be paid. If you gave the location of a Sikh, you would be rewarded. If you tried to give resources or help a Sikh, you would be punished, whether you were a Sikh or not. This was an incredibly tough time for the Sikhs. And in response to all this adversity, Sikhs developed this language of resilience called Khalsa Bolli, where everything was reframed from a negative to a positive. So if an individual was blind, they would call them Surma, a brave warrior. If they had only vision in one eye, they would call them Lakhnitra Singh, a vision of 100,000. They would call meager food something that was rich and opulent. So we know in South Asia, badams are very rich food. So raw chickpeas would be called badams. A sip of milk would be called drinking the ocean. Everything was reframed in this positive sense. Exactly. So this provided this Sikh community that was undergoing this genocide, the resilience. This was the response. The response wasn't to break down. The response to it was to develop even stronger sense of resilience that continues to this day. One of the most interesting aspects of Khalsa Bolli is this. When you see one Sikh, they would say, Savalak Aya. And when they see a group of Sikhs, they say, Fauja Aya. So if you look at it, they would look at one Sikh as a larger number than a group of Sikhs because they recognize that even alone, we are Savalak. This is the tradition that we come from. This is the strength that we can tap into. And from this, Khalsa Bolli, there's so much more we can look into. This idea of tiyar par tiyar is such a powerful idea. To be always and ever ready, to be perpetually prepared, to look at your life and say that no matter what you're facing, you're going to be ready for it. This was a language that was developed when Sikhs were literally facing potential death at any moment. That's why they needed to be perpetually tiyar but tiyar. They had a price on their head. They were being hunted, literally. And because of that, they need to develop this culture of perpetual preparedness. But now let's look at how we can apply this idea of tiyar but tiyar to our lives today. What are the different struggles and battles that you're going to face in your life right now? And how can you develop a life practice so you can be ready for whatever life throws at you? Because life is a battle. If we're saying we go to war against our ego, how can you be perpetually prepared to battle Kam, Krodh, Lo, Moh, and Hankar, anger, lust, anger, greed, attachment, and egotistical pride? How can you be ready for these battles to make sure that you are ready to be prepared for whatever adversity life throws at you, be it personal, spiritual, mental, or otherwise? That is the mental state the Sikhs are aspiring to achieve. Har Maidan Fateh. Har Maidan Fateh is a really powerful idea. And it's this idea of having victory in every single battlefield. Because life is a battlefield. If we're saying we're going to war against our ego, we're going to war against lust, anger, greed, attachment, and egotistical pride, how can we search to make sure that we are victorious in every one of those battles? To have victory in all those battles. But beyond that, Har Maidan Fateh was developed at a time when Sikhs were being hunted to elimination. This was a time in which, a matter of decades, Sikhs faced two kalukare, two genocides Sikhs experienced. But despite that, they continually were seeking Har Maidan Fateh. Despite the losses, they said, we're still seeking victory in every battle. And ultimately, these were the same Sikhs who then went on to form a Sikh kingdom. They were victorious in the end. But this is the mental state that they developed. How can we learn from them, those Sikh warriors who were able to develop this kind of state of mind where, irrespective of the losses, they continually sought for victory? So in Gurbani, we have this idea of dukhdaru, of pain being medicine. It's a beautiful idea. It's a powerful idea of pain being medicine. Because if you look at your own life, you understand how many times you've experienced a painful moment, a loss, a setback. But imagine if you understood this as a lesson. If you understood this as a moment to improve, to learn from, to become better. How would that impact your life? How would it reframe how you experience loss and sadness? This is the way of the spiritual warrior. This is the Sikh way, where we don't look at pain as something that is negative. We look at pain as something that can help teach us, to make us better. And if anything, we can look at joy, materialistic joy, as a disease. Sukh rog paya. And when we recognize that when we feel, we get absorbed in that materialistic joy, when we get absorbed into materialistic joy, we forget about improving ourselves. We get so caught up in that materialism, we forget about the larger goal at hand, to battle our ego, to understand our oneness. So this is the paradigm in the Sikh path of understanding how pain can be, in some moments, a lesson, and how joy, particularly materialistic joy, can be a disease. But also, there's an interesting dynamic here. In Gurbani, whenever you see sukh, you see dukh. You see dukh, you see sukh. You see this combination of whenever you see joy, you see pain, you see pain, you see joy. Whenever you see pain, you see joy, you see joy, you see pain. And they say that however happy a person will be, that's how sad they will be. Because when we look at it, especially with regards to this materialistic joy and pain that we face, that are sometimes two sides of the same coin, both of us drive us deeper through the ego. Either we wallow in self-pity of why we've experienced this pain, or we get engrossed in our pride, say, I've achieved so much. But ultimately, both are still feeding our ego. And in the Sikh way, we want to battle our ego. We want to overcome our ego. And we want santokh. We want balance, contentment. We want to have that ability to never be thrown either high or low and maintain that balance. This is the goals. This is the goal that the Sikh path provides to us. This is the way the Sikh path provides to us as a journey, a process to obtain the peace, the balance, and joy that spiritual joy that we truly seek.
That I do that a lot with my wife. I mean, every week, ek ya do wadi idda hunda wa when I call my wife and I tell her something good is coming. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm going through a lot today. so something good is coming. She's like, how you can say that? I was like, I know. Because coin the two sides hunde a. And I know I'm going through a lot. And I feel like by the end of today, it's going to be worst. But tomorrow is going to be a better day.
But now look at it like this. There's this line from Gurbani that says, Tera kiya meetha lage. Whatever you do is sweet to me. Whatever you do is a positive thing. What if we start to look at our lives to say that even in those moments of pain, there is sweetness, there is positivity? Because if we leave that experience having improved ourselves, having become better, having learned from that, and become someone who is that much closer towards self-improvement, then that pain was something that was sweet. We need to look at our lives in this way. This is the distinct, unique way that the way of the spiritual warrior, the Sikh way, asks us to look at this life. To even look at pain as something that is sweet and beautiful. To have loss as something that is sweet is beautiful. To experience everything as sweet and beautiful. Because ultimately, if we're truly trying to understand hukam, if we're understanding that we're all one, we're all connected, and everything that happens is in the hands of the divine, then everything that we experience is something that is joyful. Everything that we experience is something that can improve ourselves. It's why, as Sikhs, we aspire to be nirpo, to be fearless. This is when we talk about being nirpo, this is something that we hope to become like. We want to be fearless. When we think about nirpo, we want to become fearless in the Sikh way. The way of the spiritual journey, the way of the spiritual warrior, is to become nirpo, to become fearless. Because if you think of your life, how often does fear limit you? Fear of what others think. Fear of the idea that you're not good enough. Fear of failing. All of these things limit us. But when we eliminate fear, that's when we can achieve our true potential. Because we realize that we are infinite. We are limitless. That is our true nature. And that's why when you connect in this path of the spiritual warrior, you lose your fear now and you live a fearless life now. That is the transformative path that we are hoping to achieve as Sikhs.
ਅੱਜ ਫੀਲ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਦਾਂ ਹੋਇਆ ਪੌਡਕਾਸਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿ we had an English ਕਥਾਵਾਚਕ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਭਾਈ ਪਿੰਦਰਪਾਲ ਜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੁਣਦਾ, ਸੰਤ ਮਸਕੀਨ ਜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਕੁਛ ਕੁ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਆ ਪੌਡਕਾਸਟ ਦੇ ਜ਼ਰੀਏ ਇਹੀਆਂ ਰੂਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਟਰੋਡਕਸ਼ਨ ਹੋਈ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਕਥਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਪਰ ਉਹ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ। ਸੋ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਡੂਇੰਗ ਰੀਲੀ ਗੁੱਡ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਮੈਂ ਇੰਸਟਾਗ੍ਰਾਮ 'ਤੇ ਸਟੋਰੀਜ਼ ਵੀ ਦੇਖਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਕੋਈ ਰੀਜ਼ਨ ਸੀਗਾ, ਦੈਟਸ ਵਾਈ ਰੀਚ ਆਊਟ ਟੂ ਯੂ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਕਿ ਕਈ ਮੀਡੀਅਮ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਦੇ ਥਰੂ ਐਕਸਪਲੇਨ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾਣ ਤਾਂ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਉਹ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਅਸਰਦਾਰ ਹੋਣ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਸੋ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਚਿਰ ਤੋਂ ਪਲਾਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਪਏ ਸੀ ਇਹ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਨੂੰ, ਐਂਡ ਫਾਈਨਲੀ ਵੀ ਡਿਡ ਇਟ ਟੁਡੇ। ਆਮ ਸੋ ਹੈਪੀ ਫॉर ਦੈਟ ਐਂਡ ਆਈ ਲਰਨ ਅ ਲੋਟ ਫਰੋਮ ਯੂ। ਲਰਨਿੰਗ ਇੱਕ ਪਾਸੇ, ਬਟ ਦ ਐਨਰਜੀ ਆਮ ਫੀਲਿੰਗ, ਇਟਸ ਰੀਲੀ ਗੁੱਡ, ਇਟਸ ਰੀਲੀ ਗੁੱਡ। ਕੋਈ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਦਿਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਟਾਈਮ ਕੱਢ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹੋ, ਜਦੋਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਦੋ ਰੂਹਾਂ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਕੋਈ ਚੰਗੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਉੱਤੇ ਸੁਣੀ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਸੋ ਆਈ ਫੈਲਟ ਦੈਟ ਟੁਡੇ ਐਂਡ ਆਈ ਰੀਲੀ ਐਪਰੀਸ਼ੀਏਟ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਏ ਹੋ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਿਜ਼ੀ ਹੋ, ਯੂ ਹੈਵ ਸੋ ਮਚ ਗੋਇੰਗ ਔਨ, ਯੂ ਕੇਮ ਆਊਟ and you did this for us. I just want to say thank you to you.
And I want to thank you, brother, as well. You mentioned people like Sant Singh Miskeen. I listen to Sant Singh Miskeen a lot. Some of the stuff that I shared in this conversation today was inspired by, hearing his amazing teachings. As I said before, I appreciate you giving me this honor, but I am not a Sikh theologian. I'm not a Sikh academic. Like I said, I'm not even that good of a Sikh sometimes. But I have people around me who've been able to share a lot of knowledge. I try my best to explain these ideas in a way that I think is lacking right now in terms of the discourse around Sikhi, especially in English, I would say. There's not enough people across the board in the world who realize the deep, rich history we have as Sikhs and how this way of the spiritual warrior, this spiritual path can really help improve us and make us better. So really thankful for you for giving me this opportunity as well. And I hope we can do another one sometime.
100%.
We got more to talk about, clearly.
There are so many things we want to talk about, but we are running out of time.
No
but
problem.
we'll do another one soon.
For sure, brother.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ